Good evening and welcome to the Lagos studios of IATV. I am Adegboyega Labiron with the news. Ahead of the May 29 handover of political powers, people living with disabilities in the country have called on the presidency and all incoming state governments to avoid relegating their demands to the background. The Lagos State chapter of the Association of Persons Living with Physical Disabilities made the call today while setting agenda for incoming administrations in the state and the federal level. They noted that inclusiveness in governance had always excluded them, thus reducing anyone with disability to a potential beggar.
The incoming government should be guided by three fundamental goals as follows. 1. Attack poverty among people living with disabilities. The United Nations estimate has it that 80% of people affected by chronic poverty are usually made up of people living with disability, especially in developing countries like Nigeria. So this means that government would have removed poverty by more than half generally if they could just achieve 30% poverty reduction among people living with disabilities alone.
They are calling for full implementation of all the laws protecting the rights of persons living with disabilities.
The incoming government should be guided by three fundamental goals as follows. 1. Attack the incoming governor to restructure the inclusive mechanism for Lagos State for effectiveness, discipline, and accountability. Our cluster has been working to build capacity at the grassroots for our members, where the challenges of living with disability is most difficult. But our major challenge has always been the response from local government authorities. Most local government authorities in Lagos State are not even aware of the disability law.
They also tasked the government to shift from the charity mindset to that of institution and capacity building when dealing with people living with disabilities in the country, arguing that they are supposed to contribute significantly to the nation's economy. 4 people have been reportedly killed today when a moving train ran over a tricycle along Iju-Fagba corridor of the railway line in Lagos State. The Lagos District Superintendent, Christian Marza, confirmed the incident in a chat with newsmen. Marza said the tricycle was trying to outsmart the train when the train ran over it at the railway level crossing. According to him, 4 people were killed while 1 person was injured in the accident. He argued that the officials managing the rail lines had always had hard times with motorists when managing traffic along the railway, which he said was the reason for the unfortunate incident. He called on motorists to always obey signs and signals at various level crossings to avoid such accidents in the future. Still in Lagos State, stakeholders in the agro sector have called on the presidency to be more strategic in drafting policies governing the nation's economy to ensure that all players in the economic value chain are fairly treated in the overall interest of the populace. Some of them who gathered in Lagos recently accused the president of neglecting some sections of the nation's agro subsector in its policy formulation, which they say contributes significantly to the nation's economic condition.
Fisheries. I told them, the Ministry of Agriculture, that is bringing in money. They spend money there, they don't get money back. Because 1, from our licensing, there's revenue for government. We do, some of us are into ornamental fish, we export. The rest, all other products are being banned. It's only fish.
Men need to understand that fishery is a part of agriculture. Right now is a subsector of agriculture. Right now, fishery is being treated as if we are not part of agriculture at all. once they roll out policies, how many times have you seen them talk about export for fishes on TV? No. There's been a ban on export of fish for the past 2 years, which we had to take up since last year to make sure that it's being reversed. That is from EU and from the US. Why? Because our practices were not acceptable.
They argue that the fishery industry alone could be a veritable boost to the nation's economy if all its potentials are well harnessed.
My advice for the government, yes, on paper they may have a lot of things they are talking about in terms of helping the farmers, ease of doing business, and how to subsidize farming. This should be practical. It's enough to have it on paper. It's enough to talk about it, but practically, it should be seen.
They are also calling on the government to be proactive in helping to secure some fish export license for Nigerian fish farmers. IATV records that it is over 2 years since some species of the nation's seafood were banned in the international market. Over now to Kwara State, where the federal government says paucity of funds is responsible for the delay in the completion of some projects across the country. Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, disclosed this at a capacity building workshop for controllers of housing and lands in Ilorin, Kwara State.
To regulate these schools is in the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, not in the ministry. It's a power vested by law. So the ministry cannot interfere with that power. It's a statutory power. All that the ministry is saddled with now is policy directives, which I have given.
The workshop was organized to further strengthen the capacity of federal controllers of housing and lands across the country. The minister disclosed that borrowing was necessary to fund capital projects.
The major problem we have with infrastructure generally is regular funding and sustained funding. So those who say we shouldn't borrow must find a way, alternative answer to where we will get the money. Those who don't support borrowing, are they ready to support increased taxes? Because on the one hand, they are also saying that in order to drive the economy, government must reduce taxes on corporate taxes and individual taxes. So it's a chicken and egg thing, really.
The ministry had no power to sanction the electricity distribution companies, saying the ministry can only give policy directives. And now to Ondo State. The Ondo State Command of the Nigerian Police has arrested one Deji Adenuga, the suspected murderer who set 9 members of his estranged girlfriend's family ablaze in Igbodigo, Okitipupa local government area of the state on Monday, April 23rd, 2019. The suspected arsonist was among the inmates that escaped from the Olokuta prison in Akure during the 2013 jailbreak, was re-arrested in Ijebu-Ode, Ogun State. It was gathered that Deji Adenuga set a family of 9 ablaze over allegation that his ex-girlfriend Titi Tsunami jilted him. Adenuga had allegedly killed his former wife in 2010 and was subsequently sentenced to death. After 1 week on the run, Nemesis caught up with him as the police arrested him along the Lagos-Benin Expressway in Ijebu-Ode, Ogun State.
To note here that this same suspect is rather notorious for committing heinous crimes, especially murder, as he had earlier killed his former wife, named Abiye, sometimes in the year 2000. The earlier murder case is also going to be looked into with a view to having him face the full weight of the law.
In a chat with newsmen, the suspect, Deji Adenuga, confessed to committing the crime.
My second 3 times I go for Kenya side, I don't see anything. Because that I don't come out my hand.
The State Police Command also paraded 2 suspected kidnappers who had been terrorizing travelers along the Owo Ikarea Koko Road. And now to Osun State. Nigerians want the federal government to put in place a control mechanism to cushion the effect of the newly signed minimum wage law to effect increase in salaries in the system. Some residents of Osogbo, the Osun State capital, were reacting to President Muhammadu Buhari's assent to the minimum wage bill when they said unless prices of commodities are stabilized, the minimum wage increase may come with pain.
In fact, every minimum wage in Nigeria comes with maximum crisis. The maximum crisis in the sense that increment in everything that Nigeria buys will come in with it. And more so when you look at the country today, large members of the state are unable to meet their obligations on the current wage bill. And now that we increase it, what comes to that state, those states? What are they going to do to meet up with the current demand?
For me, I'm not sure. It can't affect the economy at all. Already, things were so tight, and as soon as the people that are selling things are heard that they have increased the salaries, they inflate the price of what they are selling. So it's just a kind of more tougher than before. So I'm not sure the increment of salary will have any effect, any positive effect on Nigeria economy.
The federal government has signed into law the new minimum wage bill of 30,000 naira for civil servants, though its payment is set to commence in May 29, 2019 to mark the International Workers' Day.
Government, we help the poor man is to reduce the commodities expensive so that everybody can go market and buy something cheap, buy everything cheap, because we don't know now. We don't know what the federal government will bring out by increasing the minimum wage. Maybe now they will increase the fuel price or increasing the distance. When you go to like Cotonou now to go and import something, maybe then we increase the tariff.
I even think of increasing the salary cadre of the civil servants. It is good and it is even overdue. But in my own opinion, our president and his entire cabinet should please endeavor to help us to look at market control. It should go and control the market price so that the thing will balance up. Otherwise, it will still amount to zero because all Nigerians are not civil servants.
They said although it is meant to increase the purchasing power of workers, the experience after such an increase in wage had not always been palatable as prices of goods and services usually go up. Over now to Faith Agbetuya for the business segment of the news.